Leaving already? Can you get champagne ready for me at the party? How many? 1 bottle. Hey you, Lifeguard.
Juan stepped out of his car under the front shade of Hotel Sol. The hotel doors opened ahead of him, glass sliding apart.
Full, Senor Juan? Where else?
He handed the key to the valet. The valet smiled because that was what they did when they knew the answer. Juan crossed the entrance. The hotel manager stood near the corridor to the pool, with a clipboard tucked under one arm, already dressed for the day's first complaint.
Bom dia, Juan. Marcelo. Your usual row is open. Good. You coming tonight? To what?
Marcelo looked up from the clipboard.
The summer opening party.
Juan slid the sunglass between 2 fingers and looked toward the pool corridor.
I'll think about it. It starts at 7. I didn't say I'll go.
Marcelo gave him the kind of look staff gave regulars when they had watched the same performance too many summers in a row.
You should come. We'll see.
Juan smiled enough to answer, and not enough to promise. Marcelo checked something on the clipboard and stepped aside. That was Marcelo. He knew the room, knew the guest, and knew when a man had already decided something he still wanted to pretend was open. Juan moved past him toward the pool doors. The glass caught him before he reached the handle. He stopped close enough to use it like a mirror. He pushed the door open and stepped onto the deck. The pool hid in layers. Heat from the tile, glare from the water, bar music low under guest voices, sunbeds lying near the glass railing, umbrellas opened over tables, towels waited near the showers. The pool was already awake. Juan checked Barraca Sol first. Caio stood behind the counter in a yellow apron over his white shirt, towel tied at his waist, blonde hair falling near his forehead as he leaned toward the grill. Bento stood beside the register with his black cap backward. Caio did not look at Juan yet, which meant he had seen him, and decided not to give him the satisfaction. Fine. Some people needed more time to pretend. Juan's usual row sat near the glass railing. The chair gave him the side of the pool, the sun at the right angle, the counter in view. Only then did he check the lifeguard. He sat high on the chair near the deep side in a white tank top and red shorts. Dark hair, straight shoulders, whistle against his chest. One hand near the arm of the chair. His eyes moved over the pool. Juan crossed to his row. Camilla turned first from the umbrellas. Luna followed beside her in a green cover-up, her smile already placed and softer than Camilla's. Juan lifted his hand. Caio finally looked. His eyes moved from the grill to the counter, then to Juan's row, then back to the grill. His hand pressed the spatula flat against the patty, and the meat hissed under it. That was better than a wave. Juan reached his chair and placed his towel at the head. The sunglasses went beside it. He took off the cream shirt and folded it once because the deck had eyes, and messy closes made messy conclusions. The shirt went over the towel. Camilla looked. Luna looked. Bento looked and said something to Caio. The lifeguard checked the shallow steps. Juan sat on the chair with one leg stretched out and one bent. The sunglasses went on. His face turned toward the water, but his ankles held a stand. Caio passed one basket across the counter. He did not look at Juan again. Juan had time. He leaned back and reached for the earbuds tucked under his folded shirt. One went in, then the other. The music came low at first, and he turned it up until the pool softened around the edges. That was the part people always got wrong. They thought he lay there to count who looked. Sometimes he did. Most times, the sun, the music, and the small clean pleasure of having nowhere to be until the heat decided he had enough. The whistle cut through the song, sharp. Juan opened his eyes behind the sunglasses. The new lifeguard stood on the lower step of the chair, whistle still against his mouth. One hand lifted toward the shallow side. The lifeguard waited until the boy reached his towel, then lowered the whistle and returned to the chair. He did not look around to see who had watched him do it. Interesting. Juan took one earbud out. The music kept playing in one ear while the pull came back in through the other. Caio turned Patty behind the counter. Bento leaned toward him, mouth moving. Caio hit him with the towel and kept working. There he was, still using work like a locked door. The sun set over Juan's chest. He knew how he looked from the chair, from the umbrellas, from the counter. One arm behind his head, one leg stretched out, sunglasses on. Body open to the light like the morning had been arranged for him. That was useful. It was also comfortable. People forgot both things could be true. He closed his eyes. The music took the pull away by degrees, pulling the voices back. Somewhere to his left, Barraca Sol kept working, and Caio stayed behind it with his towel, his grill, and his little kingdom of pretending.
Hands down.
The whistle cut through the song. Not the same sound as before.
Out for 5.
He waited until the rules ended, then lowered the whistle and returned to the pool. Juan opened his eyes behind the sunglasses again. Nice voice. Clear enough to cut across the water. Low enough not to back the deck for obedience. Juan took both earbuds out and set them on the towel beside his sunglasses. The deck had already turned toward the shallow side, but Tiago stayed with the work. His eyes moved from the boy to the girl, then to the mother near the rail, checking the whole small mess until it held its shapes again. Juan stood. The sunglasses stayed on the chair. He crossed toward the marked lane. Tiago did not turn right away. Good. He was either disciplined enough to finish his check, or careful enough to make Juan wait. Both had uses. Juan stepped to the edge of the marked lane and rolled his shoulder once. The water threw light up onto his legs. The tile burned under his feet. He looked across the lane to the wall below Tiago's chair and chose the line. The pool opened cold around his hand, then closed over his back. The noise vanished first. The heat went next. For 5 strokes, there was only water, pressure, and the clean pull of the lane. His hand gripped the tile. Water ran down his face, and he pushed his hair back before he looked anywhere else. First Barraca Sol. Caio still held the basket, and his eyes were on Juan now. Tiago looked down from the chair. His hand stayed on the armrest, and whistle rested against his chest, and his face gave almost nothing away, but his eyes had reached Juan and stayed there. The boy on the towel clapped once. Tiago pointed at him.
5 minutes.
The boy dropped his hand to his lap. Juan laughed, but the sound broke against the pull noise. Tiago came back to him anyway. Tiago looked at the pull first because he was good at his job. Then he looked back at Juan because the job was not the only thing working. Interesting had become worth moving for. Juan pushed off the wall. The water slid over his shoulders, and the deck returned in pieces. He climbed out near the towel rack below Tiago's station. Water ran from his shorts and crossed the tile in a line that broke around the drain.
Nice form.
Tiago said. Juan looked up. The chair had spoken first. Better. Juan had expected to be the one to open the line. Tiago had done it from above him.
I try to keep the new lifeguard awake. So you know I'm new. Everyone knows. That fast?
Juan pushed his hair back.
What's your name? Tiago. Juan.
Tiago checked the shallow side, and then returned to Juan. Juan turned the towel once in his hand.
Strict chair. Safe chair. Same thing? Not always.
His answer came clean. No extra smile. No hurry to impress. Juan smiled enough for both of them.
Good to know.
He walked back toward his row. The first chair waited near the glass railing with his towel, folded pants, cream shirt, sunglasses, and earbuds placed exactly where he had left them. It was still a good chair. It still gave him Caio, sun, and enough public distance. It no longer gave him Tiago, so it had become the wrong chair. Caio would see the move. Tiago would have to keep him inside his route. Juan picked up his things and carried them to the sunbed near the deep side. Not the closest chair, but close enough. At Barraca Sol, Bento stared from the register. Caio wiped the counter, though the counter was already clean. Tiago checked the shallow steps, the ladder, the diving lane, then Juan's new chair. This time Juan smiled before he looked away. The pool settled again around him. Camilla leaned toward Luna. Bento finally moved the tray. Caio returned to the grill and pressed the spatula down too hard. The new chair worked. Juan leaned back and kept his eyes open behind the sunglasses. From the deck, it would look like sunbathing again. Caio had the stand, Tiago had the chair, and now both of them sat inside the same angle. By lunch, Barraca Sol kept pulling guests toward the counter and sending them away with basket in their hands. Caio had no room left between orders. Juan stayed on the closer chair and let the afternoon arrange itself around him. A child dropped a fry near the edge.
Leave it!
Tiago stood on the lower step of the chair before the child's fingers reached the tile. The white tank top pulled flat across his stomach. When he stepped higher, Juan looked once, then looked at his own stomach. Fine. Not bad. Still, at 126, Juan sat up and took off his sunglasses. Tiago looked down from the chair. Then his eyes moved past Juan toward Barraca Sol. Caio stood behind the counter with the towel in his hand. That was interesting.
Want to join me for lunch? I can't leave the chair until the next guard takes it. When is that? 2.
Juan knew it was 2. He lifted his bottle and drank, then lowered it toward Barraca Sol and crossed the deck. Camilla tilted her head toward Luna and spoke behind her cup. Bento saw Juan first and went quiet too fast. Caio did not look up right away. He finished wrapping a basket, passed it to a guest, wiped his hand on the towel at his waist, and turned toward Juan.
Busy?
Juan rested one forearm on the counter.
You can see the line. There is no line. There was. Good thing I waited. Yeah, for a second I thought you were skipping lunch.
Juan smiled. Bento looked between them. Juan looked at Bento.
I see you're still charming. Yeah, same I hear about you.
Caio opened the bun tray.
Cheese with no onion. I know. I didn't order yet. You came to the counter. That means burger? With you, yes.
There it was. Same way Caio pretended the memory had nothing soft inside it.
Cola?
Juan looked toward the lifeguard chair. Tiago still sat above the pool. One foot rested on the lower bar. The white tank top still sat too well at his waist.
Water. Since when? Since today.
Caio pulled one bottle from the cooler and set it beside the basket. Juan carried the basket and water to the small table nearest Barraca Sol and sat with his back angled just enough to keep the stand in reach. Waiting looked better from a table. At 1:54, the next lifeguard arrived. Tiago climbed down from the chair, spoke to him, and handed over the station. Caio turned as Tiago came near. That was the problem. Tiago reached the counter. They stood with the counter between them. Tiago did not lean in. Caio did not smile too much. That made it worse.
Tiago!
Juan tapped the chair across from him.
Sit.
Tiago looked back at Caio. There. That look was why Juan had called him. Tiago stepped away from the counter and sat across from Juan. The table held the heat from the grill. Tiago sat with his shoulders square, but his eyes still carried the pull. He looked at the chair, then the water, then the counter. His body had left work. His attention had not.
It's not 2 yet.
Juan said.
1:59. So you're not strict.
Tiago's eyes came back to him.
I'm off the chair.
Caio came around the counter with the basket in one hand.
Staff lunch. Thank you.
Tiago's hand came to the basket as Caio's fingers still held the edge.
You make mine look smaller on purpose? It's the same. Well, you know how I like it.
Caio took the towel from his waist and folded it once in his hand.
Yeah. Cheese with no onion.
Tiago opened the cola. The bottle hissed. Juan leaned back.
He remembers everyone's order.
Caio looked toward the pool.
I do not.
Caio did not. He remembered Juan's. Camilla and Luna came through with drinks, turning the table bright for a few minutes. Camilla greeted Juan first. Luna greeted Tiago. They asked about the party tonight, and the answers landed one by one. 3 yeses at the same table. Caio returned to Barraca Sol. Tiago ate, but he did not settle. His eyes kept moving back to the pool, like the chair still had a string tied to him. Then to Barraca Sol, where Caio's hand kept finding work.
Different out of the chair? Yes.
Tiago looked toward the pool.
I need some getting used to. You have me now. Thanks.
Tiago said. He smiled, small and polite. Caio stood behind the counter with one hand near the register and the other near the towel at his waist. Bento spoke beside him. Caio did not turn, but his eyes moved once toward their table. The next 20 minutes moved through the lunch noise. Tiago finished enough of the food to stand. He capped the cola and carried the basket back to the counter. Juan followed with his drink.
I'll see you boys tonight.
Tiago stepped away from the counter.
Yeah. See you both tonight.
He crossed toward the locker room. Juan stayed. Bento looked from Caio to Juan, then picked up a tray and carried it to the sink.
You thought about it?
Juan rested both hands on the counter.
About what?
Caio wiped one spot near the register. Juan leaned closer.
Tonight. Yeah. I'm going to the party. That's not what I asked.
Bento dropped something metal near the sink on purpose. Caio looked back at him.
I'm working. Tonight, then.
Caio did not answer, but that was also an answer. Juan walked back toward the sunbeds. He stayed near the closest chair after Tiago left. The sun had shifted, and the pool had changed with it. At 3, Caio untied his apron. Marcelo crossed the deck and stopped near Barraca Sol with his clipboard. Juan could not hear him from the chair. Caio nodded. Bento's face changed like someone had lifted him out of the deep end. Caio stepped out from behind the counter, then walked toward the staff gate with Bento beside him. Only then did Juan pack. He walked toward the showers. The outdoor shower area sat behind the tile partition near the wall. One guest rinsed his feet at the far end. Juan took the corner shower and set his things on the dry bench. The water hit cold first, then warm. The deck noise flattened behind the partition, and for the first time since he had walked in, nobody had a clean angle of him. As Juan reached for his shirt, his phone vibrated from inside the folded pants. Rafa, his co-worker.
I'm leaving.
There it was, work voice. Juan picked up the towel and dried the back of his neck.
I said I'll be there soon.
Rafa spoke fast enough that Juan did not need to answer every line. Juan checked the time on the screen.
Send me the deck again.
Rafa said something about already sending it. Juan ended the call. Marcelo crossed the deck with his clipboard and stopped when he saw him.
Leaving already? Can you get champagne ready for me at the party? How many?
Marcelo's eyes dropped to the clipboard.
1 bottle.
Marcelo looked at him over the top of the clipboard. Juan smiled enough to answer. Marcelo wrote something down. Then Juan pushed the glass door open. And this was chapter 3 of Hey You Lifeguard. Juan came through the front doors like Hotel Sol had been holding his place. Usual row, the usual order, the usual way everyone looked before they admitted they were looking. But by lunch, the order had changed. One new lifeguard in the chair. One old memory behind Barraca Sol. Tonight the pool closes. The music starts. Caio will be behind the bar. Tiago will be out of uniform. And Juan will arrive with no water to dive into. Chapter 4 begins at the summer opening party. I've added a poll in the description, so tell me who you want to end up together. You can also leave a comment below.
See you in chapter 4. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more stories on gay audiobooks.
YouTube membership is also open, behind closed doors. If you'd like to support me and help me keep creating these stories, please consider joining. Thank you for listening.